Brexit, 3 years on. Presiding officer, what a dismal phrase to hear, particularly in Scotland, where 62% of the people voted in 2016 to remain in the EU, a much higher proportion than the 51.8% across the UK who voted to leave. Glasgow, of course, voted 66% remain, and as recently as August last year, a panel-based poll for the Times newspaper found that 72% of voters across Scotland would now vote to remain in the EU. But here we are, 3 years on, reaping the economic and social whirlwind of the most ludicrous, self-destructive policy a nation has ever inflicted on itself in recent times. Citizens, workers, students look as their employment rights and living standards are stripped away before their very eyes. So many promises made by Brexiteers and so many promises not delivered. Workers' rights are already under threat from yet another Tory government who are pursuing legislation that will effectively ban strike action and whose public order bill would see unprecedented restrictions on the right to protest in England and Wales. The retained EU law bill, without a doubt, poses the most serious threat to workers' rights. So many of our employment rights are bound up with EU membership, and in particularly membership to the EU social chapter. Now, I remember the heady days of the 1997 general election, which saw not a single Tory MP return to Scotland. Tony Blair's Labour Party finally managed to win, and he made good on his commitment to remove the Tory opt-out from the social chapter of the Maastricht Treaty, meaning that UK citizens at last gained access to rights enjoyed by workers across the EU, rights relating to working hours, childcare, parental leave, health and safety. Things they told us could only get better. But now we are locked in a UK run by increasingly right-wing Tory governments. We've had our EU membership removed against our democratically expressed view, and it appears not a single unionist party is interested in returning to EU membership or standing up to the full range of rights represented in the social chapter. The trade union Unison warned us about the EU retained law bill and its warning, which we ignore at our peril. Unison states that the bill has set a fast-moving conveyor belt in motion, which will see all protections of workers and citizens that come from EU law fall off a cliff edge in December 2023, unless the government decides to produce new and equivalent UK laws. Now, I have attended many trade union rallies outside this Parliament, and I am currently a trade union member myself. Some of the rallies that I've attended include the Fire Brigades Union and the University and College Union. And whilst there is anger and clamour for investment in people and in the services they provide, I have heard at more than one of these events an acknowledgement that dealing with the Scottish Government is a completely different matter to dealing with the UK Government. I would suggest that this is because the Scottish Government is committed to a progressive approach to industrial relations, and it recognises trade unions as partners in delivering economic and social goals. Now, which one of us believes that this Tory government has any interest in resolving current disputes in partnership with trade unions and the workers they represent, or in developing employment law that will safeguard rights in the way that they are protected today by the various clauses in the EU social chapter? I suspect it's not the trade unions, not the striking workers, and certainly not me. In conclusion, Presiding Officer, I hope that colleagues across the chamber acknowledge the potential bonfire of workers' rights and protections that the retained EU law bill represents. Scotland must not sit on the sidelines in this debate. We have made our views on EU membership and the benefits it confers clear time and time again. And I echo the words of those who will be gathering this evening calling for the EU to leave a light on for Scotland. And I, for one, hope that we will be back one day, ideally as an independent nation.